In Jamaica, the Andrew Holness-led government has declared a war on Don's gangs and guns after announcing a state of emergency in the St. Andrew South Police Division. The announcement was made on Sunday morning at an emergency press conference at the office of the Prime Minister. St. Andrew South has recorded the highest number of murders since the start of the year with 94 cases. The figure is 15 more than the 79 murders recorded for the corresponding period last year.
After careful consideration and of the current crime situation, His Excellency the Governor General has declared a state of public emergency for the Police Division of St. Andrew South. As it relates to deaths as a result of criminal activity, gangs, there are three actors that we have to pay attention to. Dons, who lead gangs and who use guns. That is the feature. Dons, gangs, and guns. In St. Andrew South, however, the main cause of death is gang-related, and the Commissioner will give you that statistic. It would be probably a little bit more than 70% of deaths is caused by gangs in St. Andrew South.
According to Prime Minister Holness, just as how alarm is made over the number of deaths nationally due to non-communicable diseases, emergency measures are also needed to save lives in Jamaica from crime, declaring violence is an epidemic.
We are very concerned when we see many Jamaicans dying of non-communicable diseases, such as hypertension, diabetes, and other such diseases. And in fact, if deaths related to health reach a certain level, we sound an alarm. We call for emergency measures. Clearly, if they are communicable and they reach to the point where we consider it an epidemic, then we would immediately institute emergency measures. There would be no question. There would be no issues as to whether or not we should institute emergency measures to preserve life in those circumstances. However, there is another set of circumstances which precipitate death, and this is violence. We don't treat violence as a disease, and indeed, in our society, we have accepted, if not normalized, violence. We have calculated it into our normal social transactions. So it would appear that there is no sense of emergency when we lose lives as a result of violence. But let's look at intentional homicides, because that is really what is the epidemic in Jamaica.
According to Prime Minister Holness, based on the alarming crime statistics recorded in Jamaica over the years, the nation is like a country at war.
And the decade 2000 to 2009, 13,418 murders, homicides were committed. Now, when you start to quote numbers in those regions, that would be almost the equivalent, or you start to be categorized as a country at war. Because that sounds like the death toll from a war.
He says despite the views of critics, this is evident that drastic measures such as states of emergencies have to be implemented to fight the battle, since other crime-fighting strategies in successive administrations have not worked.
Point to note is that in spite of various administrations putting in place special squads, special task force, community policing, trying to rearrange the ranks of the force by improving training and leadership and management, even with the Suppression of Crimes Act, the gun court, we have seen in that period, from 1960 to 2009, for each decade, murders moving from 855 in the decade of 1960 to 1969 to 13,418 in the decade 1990 to 1999. Or rather, sorry, from the decade 2000 to 2009. So in spite of those interventions, they have not been effective in bringing down the homicide rate. They have not been effective against violence in general, and it has definitely not been effective against violence that results in the loss of life.
In the meantime, Chief of Defense Staff for the Jamaica Defense Force, JDF Lieutenant General Rocky Meade, outlined the boundaries of the state of emergency in St. Andrew South. He said security personnel from the JDF and the Jamaica Constabulary Force, JCF, were deployed to the St. Andrew South Division at dawn on Sunday.
The Jamaica Defense Force and the Jamaica Constabulary Force deployed to the St. Andrew South Division in keeping with the declaration of state of emergency along the following boundaries. In the south, extending in a southwesterly direction from the intersection of Chisholm Avenue and Maxfield Avenue, along Maxfield Avenue onto East Avenue, to the coastline in the vicinity of Petrodram, and extending along the said coastline in the vicinity of the Kingston Container Terminal to the Portmore Causeway Bridge. In the west, continuing in a northwesterly direction from the Portmore Causeway Bridge along the Fresh River, the shared parish border of St. Andrew and St. Catherine, west of Riverton, and extending to the vicinity of the westernmost end of the Belvedere to Ferry Secondary Road. In the north, extending in an easterly direction along the Belvedere to Ferry Road to the foot of Red Hills at the intersection of Perkins Boulevard, Mullines Road, and Red Hills Road. And in the east, starting at the foot of Red Hills Road at that said intersection, extending in a southeasterly direction along Mullines Road, Seaward Drive, Mimosa Road, Aloe Avenue, Bay Farm Road, Newark Avenue, Elm Crescent, Keysing Avenue, Hagley Park Road, O'Mara Road, and Chisholm Avenue at the point of intersection with Maxfield Avenue.
He is appealing for members of the public who traverse the areas of the state of emergency to cooperate with the police officers and soldiers at the various checkpoints.